Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. And welcome to the extra time segment for Everton 3, Leeds United 0. Everton win a Premier League game for the first time since December, only the second time since September. And we did it with a plumber 3-0 win, comfortable win, fantastic performances all around. Finally, some smiles back on Evertonian faces. Been a long time coming, hasn't it, Mike?
Yeah, massively so, mate. Yeah. You know, we've been crying for a league win for quite a while, like you say. First league win since December. A lot has changed at the club since we last won a Premier League game, and absolutely vital win. But also, the performance I thought was probably our best of the season. To be perfectly honest, in terms of the league, I thought that we bossed the game from start to finish, and never felt at any point that Leeds were going to really threaten our goal. I know we had a couple of sort of times we did
the post twice.
Yeah, but I didn't think they've swung the foot from distance. You know, the second one probably more controlled than the first. They didn't get near our goal, to be perfectly honest. Pickford was not called upon really in any way, shape or form. But I just felt we had too much in our locker from the first minute. And I think the tone was set, wasn't it, from that first minute, the tempo, the chance for Anthony Gordon. And in my opinion, I thought it was a fairly comfortable win.
Indeed, I thought, we dominated the whole game. In terms, when's the last time we can really say that as Everton fans, that we dominated an entire game? I think that's been a long, long time.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but I've been saying for weeks and months on end on our podcast, I want us to go into a game and boss us from start to finish, or at least have a good half where we're on top for a whole half of football. And for me, we were on top for the whole 90 minutes, even taking our foot off the gas at the start of the second half. We were still, I thought, in control with the ball.
We handled it all right, yeah.
But you're not going to have a game, are you, where you're relentless for 90 minutes? It doesn't
happen. You're going to have 100% possession. No one does. Man City does.
No, of course. But we were probably as relentless as we could have been, and certainly a lot more relentless than we've been for the whole of this season. And the control was there for me, which was more important. And I think a lot of that is to do with, obviously, the new manager's come in, he's got new ideas, which is great. I think the introduction of Donny van der Beek, a player who, when the ball's at his feet, he just oozes calmness. And I think his introduction to that starting 11 really helped those around him. And it was great to see, him come into the side and make a real difference.
Oh, he certainly made a difference. He was one of the standout performers. But there was a lot of people in contention for the man of the match, wasn't there? I think it was probably one of the most heavily debated man of the match awards for some time at Everton. It was excellent.
I mean, my pick of Anthony Gordon wasn't even listed on the official site as an option to vote for as man of the match. I thought he was exceptional. Obviously, Van der Beek, Alex Iwobi, probably his best game he's ever had for Everton.
I can't recall him playing that well for us before.
Just sheer sort of commitment and will to work was probably the real key to his performance. I thought he was absolutely exceptional. And, the key with Alex Iwobi is that if he does play again at the weekend, then rightly so, he should be in the starting 11 based on the last performance. Then he's got to now have that consistency where we're seeing similar performances week in, week out from him. That's the key, isn't it? To get into that sort of routine now of being someone who can influence every game that he plays in as best he can. And that's the real thing, isn't it? Now to see what he can do going forward.
Definitely, and I think that's a good start. I mean, that's obviously only his first appearance under Lampard. So hopefully, more along those lines at least to come.
You've got to hope so, and that's what we want to see when players are given the chance. Because as usual, when we see the start 11, there was eyebrows raised. The back four was almost unavoidable, but obviously John Joe Kenny playing left back. So what's going on here? But
I thought he was fantastic.
So yeah, absolutely fantastic performance from him. Iwobi was in. You think he's not been great this season. He's struggled a lot since he's been at the club. Thought he was exceptional. Van der Beek comes in. Thought he was exceptional. So these players who are coming in now and being asked to start and show the manager what they can do, to show that that they can do it, they're giving them a problem when it comes to the next game, because if players play well, for me, you can't drop players if they're having a good or excellent performance. You've got to go in with a similar or same start 11 for the next game.
Yeah, and I don't think that every player has to raise the game then to get back in the team if you're not in the team. I think the thing with us is I think we've never had any luck in that respect, because it's a lot harder to have competition for places when you're getting as many injuries as we've had this season. And also, I think in general, not just this season, I feel like even in a normal season, we always get some bad luck with injuries. I think we've never really, I can't recall many seasons where we've been lucky with injuries. And I think that
injuries to key players, isn't it? It's not even injuries to players on the periphery of the squad or your squad players. It's injuries all the time to players who, on our best day, in our best 11, they would start. Yamina, obviously, still out. The core would always start the game. My Gray was injured at the weekend. He's been probably our player of the season. So there's three big players who would start week in, week out if they were fully fit. So we've been massively unlucky. Obviously, Dom's had an injury for 4 months, and he's had a few little niggles since. So our top goal scorer from last season, take him out to the side. We're a totally different team as well. Richarlison's had his moments of injury. Alan has. They've all
every member of the squad has had an injury at some stage this season, I think.
I think you're right. Even though Andros Townsend, who's come in and done really well, I know obviously maybe now he's not quite one of the first picks anymore, because like Anthony Gordon has certainly passed Andros Townsend now, Damari Gray, Richarlison, whoever it might be. But, he was in the early part of the season, he was one of our most important players. He's our leading goal scorer. He broke his foot, so we've had so many injuries to so many key players at really, really, at different times over the course of the season. So we've been unable to, like you said, then there's been little squad competition for places. So players are not being pushed each other. Results have been poor as well, which hasn't really helped. So I think, obviously, Frank Lampard coming in, the new acquisitions of Van der Beek and Dele Alli are only going to improve the quality on the training ground. And also, I think, push players along to try and improve their own performance as well.
Yeah, like you say, I think Van der Beek definitely brought an extra level of composure. I think we needed that. Obviously, Lampard wanted, you've seen his training sessions, his desire for players, he said, from his own mouth, he said, enjoy the ball. I don't think our players have struggled in that respect for a number of years.
Everton in possession hasn't been a thing, even under Carlo. At times we were quite good at sort of grinding games out and winning games by the odd goal and looking good, say, on the counter. But quite often we would give up possession under Carlo. We certainly give up possession over Benitez. That was his way, and it never really suited that side. But I think it's sometimes just giving players that confidence to go and be comfortable, like Lampard says, enjoy the ball, be comfortable on the ball. The only way to get into that mindset is to keep on doing it, is to keep on playing with the ball and not just sitting back. Because we know, even, in Lampard's first 3 games, even against Brentford, against Leeds, there was times where we try things that don't come off, or we give the ball away, trying to make what we might deem the right pass, but maybe it's too difficult. But the only way to get better, exactly, at least we're trying it. And we will improve as long as, obviously, Frank Lampard keeps on persisting with this style of football, which I'm sure that he will.
Get players more familiar with it, but also, of course, over time, you'd hope if we stick with them, and we should stick with them, bringing in more technical players who are able to do the jobs.
100%, and I think Frank Lampard's already shown in the small amount of time he's been at the club. He comes in at the end of a transfer window. I can tell you right now that Dele Alli and Van der Beek would not be coming to Everton Football Club if Frank Lampard wasn't there. That's just where we were.
Certainly not if it was Vitor Pereira.
Or Benitez was still there, or what have you, because we know Marcel Brands was a fan inside to get Van der Beek in over the course of the summer, which didn't quite happen. But I'm pretty certain Frank Lampard was pivotal to both of those deals. And the two of them, for me, are going to be vital for us in the running to the end of the season.
Well, definitely, like you say, obviously the core still be announced as well. So we did need cover in the middle of the park. And, we've had a lot of trouble in the defensive midfield with injuries. All the players you mentioned there, we didn't mention, obviously, Gabaman constantly injured, Delph constantly injured, Tom Davis is out for the season. And then Andrew Gomez has his moments, yeah.
There's a few of them, and even obviously we didn't mention Ben Godfrey before, who would be, for me, he'd be starting week in,
week out on the team sheet.
Exactly, for sheer pace, he should be, and him and Mina should, for me, are probably our two best centre halves and a partnership that you'd want to be able to rely on. But obviously, the concern is around Mina now going forward, injured again. I think that could be the last we see of Mina in Everton shares. They're saying 8 to 10 weeks. It could be longer. I think he probably goes in the summer, which is a real shame. But we've got to get.
I really like him, but you can't rely on him.
Reliance is the key. If you want to be a successful football team, the best sides have obviously good competitive squads, of course they do, but they're lucky with injuries as well, and they have players who don't break down at the top of a hat. Mina is just not made of stern stuff, and I love him. I think he's our best centre half. I think he brings a calmness to Michael Keane. I think he's great in the air. He reads the game a lot better now than he ever used to do. But if you're only getting 15, 20 games a season from him, then you're wasting your time. By just cut your losses and go and bring someone else in.
I mean, dare to say, I think that's been a basis for I think it was as far back as, dare to say, Bill Shankly used to always go by that. He would sign players who didn't get injured over, even if they were a bit more technically or limited, just to have that reliability of knowing you can count on them for 30 plus, 35 plus games a season.
It's pivotal. You do need players who are going to be fit for the vast majority of the time. It's, as I say, the best sides are sort of built around it. And it's just a shame that the fella who is our best centre half just can't seem to stay fit. And I've looked at his games since he signed for us. I think he's got over 20 games. I think once maybe in all the seasons he's been with us, which is really poor.
This is fourth season now.
And if we're not getting 20 games a season out of a centre half, out of any player, never mind a centre half, any player, then it's time for me to sort of let them go. But the issue around that is other sides will see his injury record and look at that and think, well, I'm not going to spend big money on this fella because he's not going to be playing for 50% of the time. So,
from our perspective, I think the best thing we could maybe do in the summer is sell him in a similar sort of deal to what we've just bought Dele Alli for.
Possibly so, yeah. Possibly maybe it's got
maybe
to be
for a bit more money than they've given us Dele Alli, but maybe even if it was like 5 million rising to 25 or something along them lines, maybe even more. But something like that, like some sort of structured Ian-based deal would do as good. Because if he does make appearances, he is a good player and he'll have warranted the extra transfer fee. But obviously, if it doesn't work out for them, we'll have been right to cut our losses at a cut price anyway. So it worked out well for us to do a similar deal to what Spurs done with us.
Sounds a bit mad. I think he's probably better suited to go and maybe to a country where the climate is better.
Yeah.
Because I think with muscular injuries, especially if he's someone who suffers with them, which he is, having a bit more warmth, and it sounds really mad, but that can really help players. If they're playing in a colder country, that can force players to break down who need that warmth. So maybe going back to Spain would do in the world of good.
There was rumours about Valencia, was there?
I've not seen any. I saw a couple of links in this country and like to Newcastle and teams like that, but I've not seen anything.
I wouldn't do that personally. I'd tell him to Spain.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think for him, I know he's got quite a few links in Spain. He does go back to Spain for treatments all the time. Obviously, he was at Barcelona, so he's got quite a few links there. So it'll probably help him massively. I know he's Spanish speaking as well, isn't he? Of course, but maybe that will help him to prolong his career and get sort of 25, 30 games a season under his belt regularly. But there's a deal to be done with someone, but as you said, maybe it's a case of us trying to look at different ways around it.
It's got to be some sort of incentive-based deal, I think, to convince another team to hopefully in the long term part with a large sum of money, maybe a 25, 30 million. That's the only way we're going to recoup that kind of money.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's up obviously to the powers that be to sort that out. But I do think that, as I say, that could be the last we see of Yerry Mina in an Everton shirt, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame as well. But we do need more reliable players who we can count on across the course of a season. And, personnel-wise, I'm just hoping that becomes, hopefully we improve in terms of our fitness records and stuff as the season goes on. I think Frank Lampard hopefully has a bit of a better method than obviously what Benitez had.
I suppose it's bringing in players as well. So in terms of obviously Frank Lampard's methods, is players who are used to that high intensity football, so teams who play with a higher intensity. Because I think when you play the way that we did play under Benitez and Ancelotti, in a sense, players' sort of fitness is maybe not there because they're used to just
dwindles. I think
it does. Yeah, I think it does, and I think that's what we've got to look at recruiting from sides who are used to playing that high intensity, press. Make sure you committed that kind of football.
The best example of this is, I think, the team we had that was extremely fit under David Moyes. After just over a year or so of it with Martinez, the fitness levels really dropped. And I think that's what has happened over time.
He had the 13-14 season, didn't he? Which was like the remnants of the Moyes fitness. And we were exceptional in saying, obviously, the record points total of the Premier League, and some of the football we played was fantastic, high intensity pace. And then, like you say, we got to that second season, didn't we? And things just
fitness levels fell off a cliff.
Yeah. And then thrown to the mix, he had no plan B as well. That was the end of obviously Martinez's time then went on. But I think it could be a really important ploy in the transfer market to look at those types of teams who are used to playing high intensity football.
Yeah, and hopefully, like I say, we see a few more of those in the, in the seasons to come. But going back to the Leeds win, obviously, like you mentioned, some of the personnel who've really stepped up. Is there anyone else you really noticed in that game? I think James Coleman, we haven't mentioned, who's obviously come in for criticism at times this season, but it was a proper captain's display, that, wasn't it?
What Seamus Coleman's all about, even I think in times when, he's not maybe performed particularly well, you can never question Seamus Coleman's commitment to Everton. He's always 100% committed. He wants the best for the club. He doesn't pick himself. He probably thinks, I should be taking a bit more of a back seat nowadays, but okay, we brought in Nathan Patterson, but he's not ready. As much as we all want to see him, and I'm the same, I want to see him, let's see what he can do. You can't just lash him in just because we think that our captain's passed it. But, Saturday showed what Seamus Coleman is all about. And great that he got his goal. Delighted for him. And you'd see what it meant to him, the emotion on his face when he got it. Great to see him, being so high up the pitch. And that's what, obviously, the Frank Lampard way allows the full-backs to do. Kenny was quite advanced at times. We saw him do his little double Cruyff turns in the left-hand corner, and he was really high up. He was trying to dictate play and put crosses in the box, and that's great. But though Seamus Coleman, I thought was absolutely fantastic at the weekend, and I'm just delighted for him, because I hate it when players are maybe kept on a little bit too long, and then the reputation within the club or within the fan base then starts to dwindle, and he starts to get a bit of stick. He doesn't deserve it. He's been a fantastic servant for our football club.
It's such a shame, like that players. Like you say, I think that falls on our poor recruitment.
100%. Right back should have been brought in 3 years ago. We all know that, and we've gone through a few managers since then, and it's only now that's been addressed. And only time will tell if the right decision has been made in terms of whether Patterson is good enough for the Premier League. We've only seen him play for the 23s, where he looked lively. Obviously, got an assist for Lewis Dobbin's goal against Spurs, but until we see him playing regular first-team football, we just don't know. He's the attributes. He looks like he's got all the attributes to be a good modern wing back, but we've got to just calm down when we bring these players in, give them time to settle, give them time to play man's football, if you know what I mean, and let's assess them after, say, 6-12 months of playing first team football.
With that in mind, I think we're already seeing elements of that because, like we say, if we perform like we do against Leeds, then that, puts a bit more credit in the bank for the current players and it buys the youngsters a bit more time to develop properly.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think, we're all guilty of when things aren't going our way. We're looking for, well, how can we address this? What can we do? I'll throw him in. He's on the bench. He's just being boiled. Put him on, start him, and that's
like
sometimes
throw the kids in. I'm as bad as anyone for that.
Yeah, can't do any worse than what we've got and what we've been seeing, and it's not as straightforward as that. It really, really isn't. And like you say, I'm as guilty as looking for the solutions to problems. And sometimes it's saying, well, put this player in. I mean, Dobbins had obviously loads of shouts over the last couple of months to get more game time. Ellis Sims did before his move to Hearts, and it's because we just wanted to try and find a way of winning the game of football in the Premier League, and that was the thing. But the signs now after Saturday are positive. We can see a little bit more about what Lampard's doing. The big thing now is, can we take that kind of performance on the road against Southampton? That's the key. We can't just say, well, we'll win some more home games and we'll be okay. Well, we should be approaching away games against Southampton thinking we can go there and win. If we play that way, we can go there and win. And that's the next big test for us, isn't it?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Before we just finish up on the Leeds game, just a couple of things to touch on. Like, even like a moment, like we talk about the players and the levels that improves, or even Salomon Rondon should have had a belter of a volley right at the end there, shouldn't he?
Would have been goal of the season. I mean, the ball was ridiculous, by the way. The ball was absolutely incredible. How he'd done that. It was just out of this world. It was just nonchalant, wasn't it? The way he's just bent that round the corner. Rondon couldn't cut that any better.
That was a fantastic volley to take that.
Left foot over his shoulder, and he's caught it really well. It's probably one of the saves of the season.
Save of the season, isn't it?
It's a great save. If that goes in, Rondon gets a statue outside Bramley Moor, doesn't he? You know what I mean? That's how good a goal that would have been. But it was great. I feel for him. I do, and we've all criticised him in terms of we think that he's not good enough, and he certainly wasn't the answer to, for someone coming in to take the pressure off Dom or give Dom a little bit of a rest and what have you. I do feel for him. But hopefully now we can just settle back into things, go under the sort of limelight in a way, under the radar, get sort of 10 or 15 minutes here and there, get a few goals before the end of the season, and it's job done for him. He can then sail off into the sunset then for me. But hopefully now, I think the pressure's probably off a little bit more because Benitez is gone. He was his man. He's now gone. They don't not tying the two together. I think it'll be okay for the rest of the season. But that would have been goal of the season by a country.
Nice that. We went to the Bramley Moor there. Obviously, before we go to Bramley Moor, we're getting towards the end of obviously the time of Goodison, only a couple more seasons, and that's the final thing I want to touch on is the what a fantastic atmosphere it was in the stadium. There was a big initiative, obviously, prior to the game to lift the atmosphere and help push the players on to a good result, and we succeeded in every aspect of that. I thought that was incredible.
The atmosphere was unbelievable, and we saw it against Brentford. I thought it was exceptional against Brentford. I think it was upper level against Leeds, to the point that we're booing Leeds when they were in possession. I haven't seen that for a long, long time at Goodison Park, but I don't think there's any excuse. I know we've been through and we're going through tough times. I know we're starved of success. I get all that, but our responsibility as a home fan, if you like, is whoever's got that blue shirt on, whether you like them or not, whether you like the manager or not, whatever it might be, is back them, because it can give them an extra 5 or 10%. Even if they're not in form or they're struggling, even if it pushes them on to give a little bit more to close that man down in the corner, like we see with Richarlison did against Leeds, Anthony Gordon against Brentford, winning corners, which then leads to goals. It's massive, and we've got a huge responsibility as a fan base. For me, forget about where we are in the league. Every single game, we need to be on it, because we can win our own team 3 or 4 games a season. I'm telling you now, that's how important fans are, and fans being positive. And I know it's hard at times, and I know people will say, well, the players have got to give us something. Well, I agree to a point, but haven't we got to give them something at the start of the game, to try and get things going sometimes when times are hard, and even when times are easy, just do it. Goodison Park's going to be gone very, very soon. We're going to miss it like mad, and there's no other ground in the Premier League like it when it's on it. And it's a cauldron. A lot of ex-footballers say it's the hardest place to play football when the fans are up for it. And we proved that in Lampard's first 2 games. We're on top of you. We make it nasty, make it horrible. And that's what it's all about. But I thought that the crowd was superb at the weekend. And for me, we were probably worth a goal in that game just by how good the crowd were. And it's great to see, and long may that continue.
I think that's what I was basically getting at there before we wrap up, because we haven't got long left to Goodison. Let's make every Goodison home game like that.
No reason why we can't. There's no reason why we can't. Doesn't matter who's in town, who's coming to play. I mean,
let's do it against Boreham, wasn't it, in the cup?
Exactly. It's they won't know anything like it, Boreham would, in terms of playing football at this kind of ground. The floodlights are on. It's a night game. FA Cup 5th round. Quarter-final is on the horizon. Make it nasty, make it horrible. Simple as that. Doesn't matter where they're coming from. We're not a charity. Everton Football Club, we want to win the FA Cup. We make it as hard for any opposition as we possibly can. So there's no excuse. And who knows against Man City? If we do the same against Man City, make it horrible for them. We get something from the game. We just don't know. But we've got to do our job as fans and back the team as best we can.
Well, we certainly did that against Leeds, and I'm sure no one will argue with how that turned out. So, like you say, long may it continue. We'll wrap up anyway, guys. Let us know your opinions on the Leeds game. 3-0 win, fantastic result. Drop us your comments, give this video a like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. All the Toffee Blues.